After several years of having drivers straight away, month after month after month, we actually had 1 month that we did not have any driver from AMD.
Why?
AMD has been quite slow for the past couple of months, and that's, I believe, well, I wouldn't say expected, but I guess it is expected to some extent, since they are most likely doing some drivers for RDNA 4 already, to be ready to be launched the best way they can. I guess that's the case, but I might be entirely wrong, because I have no insider info on that, so again, take my words with a grain of salt, but I guess that's the case. And that's why we've been having like one driver version a month, and drivers like the 24.11.1 that were actually these ones with less tweaks were postponed, now having to be the 24.12.1. And even in the last month, the 24.10.1 was actually released in the first days of November. So yeah, you know what I mean.
No way.
But well, as for today's video, we have the review of the new Adrenalin drivers, the Adrenalin 24.12.1, and as I say in my videos, 24 is the year 2024, 12 is the month December, and 1 is the revision in that same month, so the first revision of December. And from what I've tested so far, these drivers are quite fine. I had the drivers a couple of days ago, but I had so many things to do, and again, I mean, it's life, I guess, it's life. I had so many things to do, so I only managed to kind of test them yesterday when they were released, and now I'm releasing the video for you guys. I tested it in several systems, and they seem to be fine, and they actually bring some interesting fixes, and some very long-awaited fixes, like the fixes for Delta Force that was supposedly stuttering on the previous drivers. I did not test it, I just downloaded it and tested it with the new drivers, and they were working flawlessly. At least in the mode that I tested with the 7900 XTX, it was working fine, no issues whatsoever, as you can see passing right now on the screen. And we have several new game support like S.T.A.L.K.E.R and so on, although I must say that I'm kind of disappointed with these drivers for S.T.A.L.K.E.R, because even though they improve the gameplay smoothness considerably, they don't bring any meaningful FPS increase, at least from what I've tested. But well, let's go to the release notes. Firstly, we start with the highlights, with new game support for Marvel Rivals that will be released today or tomorrow, I believe, something like that. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, also a mess of a game. Dragon Age The Veilguard, finally we have official support on the AMD drivers. I don't have the game, so I didn't test if it is performing well or worse with the new drivers. Slitterhead, Delta Force that I tested working fine, and Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. And since we didn't have any drivers on November, we have lots of new game support in these drivers, which is to be expected. Like today's sponsor that you should be expecting. Today's video sponsor is GVG Mall, bringing you lots of software deals like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2019 or 2021 with a new Windows 11 design, and for all of these you can use my SKG discount code for 30% off, getting a Windows 11 serial key for $22 and a Windows 10 one for only $15. Then use the key on your Windows settings and you'll have an activated system. Now we have some AI development on Radeon. Official support for Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL2, enables users with supported hardware to develop with AMD ROCM software on a Windows system, eliminating the need for dual boot setups. WSL2 support has been added for ONNX runtime, TensorFlow, beta support on Triton, and if you want to find more information you can actually go to the link available. And this is actually very nice because we finally have official support for several new things like ONNX, which is used for AI, and now we can have it using the WSL2, which once again is the Linux subsystem on Windows. And it kind of now has official support. Before you have this on the most recent drivers, not these ones, but there were some drivers that actually added the official support of WSL2. These ones only add the support for some AI development on Radeon, of course, and before you actually needed to have a dual boot setup, go into Linux to actually do that, and now with WSL2 you can do these things on the fly. Of course, that it would be way more awesome if we actually had ROCM officially supported on Windows, just like install it and you're good to go, like we have on the NVIDIA side, but I guess it is what it is. AMD is at least doing something about it. And we also have expanded Hypr-Tuned support. With Hypr-Tuned support allows HyperRX to enable in-game technologies, Fidelity FX Super Resolution and Radeon Anti-Lag 2, nothing new here, and support has been added automatically to configure AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution with frame generation in Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, MechWarrior 5 Clans, and Red Dead Redemption. And what this does basically is, if you now enable HyperRX with these games, as soon as you enter the games, instead of enabling AFMF2 or AFMF, which in terms of frame generation is not as good as the inbuilt or in-game frame generation, it will enable the in-game frame generation even though you selected HyperRX. And the same applies to RSR, Radeon Super Resolution, and FSR inside the game. For the Hypr-Tuned games, if you enable HyperRX, they will enable FSR and frame generation inside the game, instead of using RSR, which is considerably worse than FSR since it uses the FSR1 algorithm, spatial upscaling, instead of using the temporal upscaling of FSR 3.1, which is actually a nice thing, very nice thing. We also have some expanded Vulkan extension support with VK extension fragment shader interlock and KHR compute shader derivatives, which might be some newer extensions for Vulkan developers, I believe. As for the fixed issues and improvements, we have lower than expected performance may be observed while using llama.ccp or CPP, sorry. These may also impact OLAMA or OLYAMA, I don't really know how to pronounce it, and LM Studio, which is nice for people using the software. Texture corruption may appear while playing the Crew Motorfest, and this was actually one of those issues that people playing the Crew Motorfest were complaining about. But I believe that people were complaining more about the new, how is it called, Solar Crown, Test Drive Solar Crown, something like that, really, I don't really remember. But yeah, people were complaining about some glitches and I believe they should fix it as well. System crash may be observed while first launching SteamVR while using Valve Index at 144 Hz on Radeon 6000 series graphics products, also fixed for SteamVR, thank God. Intermittent application freeze may be observed while loading save file in Monster Hunter World, another fix done. Intermittent application crash may be observed while playing Fortnite on Radeon RX 5000 series and above series graphics products. Honestly, several people were complaining about Fortnite and the 24.10.1 drivers, and honestly, I tested it with the 24.10.1 drivers and it was working fine, so I don't really know what was the issue itself. I tested in some GPUs that I have. Some of them did have some kind of a notice telling you that the 24.10.1 drivers were old somehow, but the game still functioned properly, at least when using the X12, of course. Yeah, I don't really know what was it. And the last one is H.264 encoding may not work as expected while using OBS Studio with Twitch Enhanced Broadcasting. And that's about it. We have lots of fixed issues and improvements, and remember, if AMD says fixed issues and improvements, it means that in some scenarios these might actually not be fixed per se. They might just have gotten improved or something like that, so might not be entirely fixed. So if some of these issues that they mention here are not fixed entirely for your system, leave a comment in the comment section telling us, the community, and telling AMD, because they do read the comment section. I don't know if they read it entirely, of course, but they do read the comment section. So leave your comment in the comment section and let us know if the issues are actually fixed or not really. And now we have the most annoying part for everyone, the known issues. Starting with intermittent driver timeout or crash may be observed while playing Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 on some AMD graphics products such as the Ryzen AI Ajax 370. Users experiencing this issue can enable variable graphics memory in AMD Software Adrenalin Edition as a temporary measure. AMD Software, blah 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 blah. And let me just tell you that people using these setups, they won't run Space Marine 2 at all, because the game is quite heavy, and I have one of these actually in that laptop, the ZenBook S16, and it just wouldn't work with Space Marine 2. It's just a big nope. Nobody would play Space Marine 2 on these chips, even though they shouldn't have this issue. But I believe they have this issue due to the graphics memory, and that's why if you have issues, just go and enable variable graphics memory and the system will enable the memory, well, automatically, and this kind of fixes it according to AMD. So yeah, just an annoying bug for a very small percentage of people. Intermittent stutter may be observed while playing Marvel Rivals when AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3 frame generation is enabled. Users experiencing this issue are recommended to disable Super Resolution 3 frame generation in the per game settings as a temporary workaround. Basically what AMD is saying here is that you might have some intermittent stutter issues when you're using frame generation in Marvel Rivals, so the fix is to not use it. But yeah, after using the AMD Cleanup utility for Windows, the AMD Bug Report tool may appear intermittently during a new driver install on AMD Ryzen 7000 and above series processors paired with an AMD graphics product. Another annoying bug, I guess, but I use DDU so I don't really care. AGVC encoding may not work as expected while using OBS Studio with Twitch enhanced broadcasting. So if you are using AGVC or AV1 or so on, just do not use the Twitch enhanced broadcasting, or if you can, just use AV1 at all, because AV1 should work, in theory at least. And the last known issue is limitations for a Windows subsystem for Linux WSL support can be found here. So this isn't actually an issue per se, but is a limitation that is happening and AMD is actually trying to fix it, I guess. And yeah, that's all for the release notes, so now let's go to the things that I found about these drivers from my testing. I tested the 6600 XT in order to have a lower tier card from the previous generation and a top tier card from the current one with the 7900 XTX. Those were the cards that I had more in hand because I was testing several things at the same time. I'm currently testing the 7600X 3D, as you can see on the Delta Force video, and one of the things that people complained a lot once again was the Delta Force stutters, and according to what some people told me on the comment section, the stutters were fixed. And then I went and installed the game and tested by myself, and yeah, the game just runs fine. I did run it at 4K FSR quality and then FSR balance. I tested both of them, it worked fine. Then I went for full 4K native and the performance was actually way better than some people told me. Some people told me that the performance was crazy bad, it was kind of unplayable, especially on AMD cards and so on. And that was getting like 100 FPS at 4K extreme settings with no kind of upscaling, which was insane again. And I don't really know about the previous drivers, but these ones, the 24.12.1, are a big yes if you're playing Delta Force. Just that. And the same kind of applies to S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. People were complaining about the stutters that we had in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. I've played a bit of S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 with the 7900 XTX as well, as you're seeing right now passing on the screen. And yeah, the stutters were kind of mild. They were there, here and there, like traversal stutters, but it was that. Only that. In terms of FPS and so on, I saw no increases in the FPS compared to the previous drivers, which is actually kind of disappointing. I was expecting some FPS boosts compared to the drivers from over 1 month ago, but we had none of those. No FPS boost whatsoever, just a smoothness increase, which is of course very, very welcomed. I'm not complaining, it is very welcomed because smoothness is more important than FPS, but since the drivers now support that game, I was looking for some FPS increases as well, and we had none, at least from my experience in the two cards that I tested. 0 FPS increase, but on the top of that, way much smoother gameplay, which is a big plus. There was also one thing happening with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 in terms of the shader cache compilation or the shader cache loading. As soon as you enter the game, the shader cache would be compiling, and what happened several times on my 6600 XT with the 24.10.1 drivers is that the shader cache would compile over and over again, like it was the first time that I was playing the game, and it was kind of annoying with the 6600 XT. As soon as I went to the 24.12.1 drivers, that thing stopped. It just loaded the first time, like it was the first time, because it was, and then the shader compilation process was just much quicker because it was compiled already. Most of the shaders were already compiled. This was an issue, I believe, with the 24.10.1 drivers in shader cache compilation for S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 in some GPUs, not all, but it seems to be fixed now, at least for me, which is also nice. And I guess that's about it. In terms of blue screens, black screens and so on, it seems to be okay. In terms of the overclocking profiles, just Again, before testing drivers, remember that you need to test the drivers at stock, because if you're testing your overclocking profiles, some of your overclocking profiles might not be stable in every single driver version, because the driver versions might change a bit the base voltage for some 3D states and so on. So take that in consideration. If you are testing and if you're having issues, try it at stock. If it works at stock, you know that it is your overclocking profile that is having some issues. And sometimes the drivers just get some different, I don't know, some different coding, and what you need to do is create the profile again with a new driver, with a newest driver, create it again with the same exact values, and then it will work. If you are using the loaded profile from the previous driver, sometimes you might have issues, and the issue is not with the numbers themselves, it is just, once again, the profile file that might be corrupted or might not work well with the newest driver versions, and you need to create another profile, or yeah, basically another profile, and then it will work. I did this several times, it happened to me several times. Most drivers work perfectly with my profile, but for example the 24.10.1 had some issues and I had to create a new one, while the 24.12.1 seems to work fine with my older profiles. But I guess that for some of you it might still cause issues. Just letting you know, because these are some of the things that you have to know, and sometimes they're quite annoying, and if you don't know what's all about, you can get frustrated and so on, and there's no need for that. Just follow my tips and you'll be fine. And well, that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video. That really helps a lot. And don't forget, leave your comment in the comment section with your experience, telling us if the 24.12.1 drivers are good, are bad, whatever they are, because AMD has been releasing like one driver version per month. So yeah, we kind of need to go, people that didn't use the 24.10.1 because they had issues with those drivers, they actually had to use the 24.9.1 or the 24.8.1 that did not have the FPS increases of the new drivers in some games like God of War Ragnarok. So people wanting to play like those games, God of War Ragnarok and so on, they had to use the older drivers because they have issues in some games, and at the same time they can't use the newer drivers for better gameplay because they have issues in the other games. So they can't be kind of changing drivers every time they want to change the game that they play. It makes no sense. And let us know if the 24.12.1 drivers actually fixed those issues for you guys. I really want to know, and I guess AMD wants to know as well. Thank you very much, guys, and see you in the next video. Cheers.